Ian, thanks so much for being with us today. Tell us more about your background and how you decided to be an entrepreneur.
Sure. Well, actually, I could even say from a very, very young age, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I remember when I was like, I think it was, gosh, I must have been maybe only like in fourth or fifth grade, but I had a chance to work for my mom at a school fair. We were trying to raise money for the school. And my mom, I'm like half Italian and half Chinese, so my mom is Chinese, and she made these really good egg rolls for the school fair to try to sell them. And I remembered I was amazed. At the time, I never really thought about business or any of that sort of stuff. And she made these egg rolls and she sold it to these people. And these people were paying what I thought was like, a fortune. I'm just a little kid. So I was like, wow, they were paying like $5 for these egg rolls each. And I was like, boy, that's a really cool thing. And, we at the end of the day, we gave it all to the school and everything like that. And I thought, wow, I would like to be able to create something of my own.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the very, very beginning. And then, as I got into the workforce and stuff like that, I went the traditional route of working for somebody else first. And I worked as a consultant. But, at the back of my mind, I always really wanted to work for myself. I wanted to be my own boss.
Yeah.
And so I was always kind of on the lookout for things that I can do. And that's really where it started. I was looking for things that, maybe there were markets that hadn't quite been tapped and that I could, take advantage of, and that hopefully I could kind of build a business kind of on the side was my idea, and then ramp it up, and then I would quit my job. And eventually that's what I eventually ended up doing.
Gotcha. So how old were you when you started your business?
Well, I guess it was almost right out of school when I started it. So, I was in my late 20s. Well, yeah, it was a little bit later than right out of school. So yeah, late 20s. And that's when I first started. But it took a while. I had, success didn't come right away. I tried a whole bunch of different things. Some things worked. Some things didn't. And every single thing, though, was like a learning. It's like one step on another helped me build and helped me understand, oh, I did something wrong. What can I do better? And so each business that I started after that, I probably had like 4 different businesses, and each one has done better after the last.
Did the first 4 fail, or are they still viable as well?
The very first one definitely failed. It was like, it didn't sell it was a software product, it didn't sell anything. The second one, well, it's not viable anymore, but it was viable for a good 2 or 3 years and was making me, at the time I was like very excited about it. It was making me an extra $700 or $800 a month with pretty much no effort. I had created this software and people would just buy it and send me checks. But it wasn't something that I knew. I wanted to quit my job, I wanted to be my own boss. And I knew, oh, this is not really going to do the trick.
Right.
So I kind of left that, and now that doesn't produce any revenue either. It's just you have to keep up with software products and stuff like that to keep people buying them.
Right. Gotcha.
But the business after that, which was Planet Source Code, it was another one where it started out really, really great, pre-.com bust, and everyone was advertising on the site. It's an advertising-driven website, and so it did fantastic for like about 3 years. And I thought, oh, well, I could easily quit my job now. But then the dot-com crash came and kind of took it down. And then, now that a lot of that stuff has kind of gone away, it started to come up. But I spend all my time on VWorker now, so I don't have too much time to work on that, unfortunately.
Gotcha. See, and it sounds to me like a totally typical entrepreneurial story because, we all have our failures. We all start multiple businesses before we kind of get it right. I think there's this myth out there that, the entrepreneur just, like Henry Ford just comes up with this idea for the car and overnight he's a success, but it didn't happen that way. Even he failed many, many, many times. So, what have you learned from your failures?
I've learned a lot of things from my failures. From that very first one, software that sold nothing, I made a lot of mistakes. And I was just, I didn't know what I was doing. I was inexperienced. I created this software product I thought in my mind was going to be this fantastic thing that everyone was going to want. And in actuality, nobody really wanted it. And if I had done my homework, if I had gone and even if I had surveyed maybe just 10 people that I just knew and asked them, I would have saved months worth of effort. But I didn't do that. So I learned an important lesson about market research and also about making sure that my product is something that really serves a need and a problem. Because that was the other thing. It didn't really solve a problem. It was cool, but it didn't solve a problem.
Right. Gotcha. So you were a consultant before, right? And were you in business school, or what was your schooling?
No, so I went to school for computer science.
Okay.
So I was a programmer.
Okay.
And and I thought, oh, really what I want to do is I want to be a computer consultant. So I'd go to these different companies and, they would need their software done or whatever, and I would provide that service for them. And I thought that was almost like being my own boss at the time. And in a way it is. It's more so than, working for taking a typical salary. But in the end, with that type of job, your income is always limited by what you yourself can do. So, if I wanted to make more money, I had to work more hours, and there's only a certain number of hours in the day, and then after that, you're done. So I really wanted a business where I could create something where other people would be helping me, reach my financial goals and, all my the company goals and things like that.
Right, gotcha. So when was the point where you really felt like, I've made it, I'm now a successful businessman? When did that happen for you?
Well, what's funny, it's like, in some ways, maybe I could say that it was when, maybe it was when the Wall Street Journal published a thing about VWorker, and it spiked up our stats. But in a way, I don't know. There's always the next valley to climb. I always feel like, oh, I could be doing so much better. It's like, look at these things that I have. We should be branching out into this and there. So in a way that there's a little bit of discontent always, but I do try to every once in a while kind of look around me and say, oh, you know what? I should be very grateful for what I have. Look how far we've come.
Yeah.
I started it from a bedroom in my house, and now, we have 15 employees. We've had to move offices, 3 times to try to grow for enough space. So, yeah, it's a difficult question. I think most entrepreneurs are probably like that. It's like you achieve a goal and you're really, really happy, and you celebrate it at the moment, but then you're like, okay, what's next? Because a lot of times it's actually the traveling to the next goal that's really the exciting thing.
Absolutely.
And what you find is the actual goal itself is not as important.
Right, absolutely. But I mean, at the same time, it totally makes sense to me because I feel the exact same way. But then I'm thinking for someone who's brand new, who wants to be an entrepreneur, who wants to start their own business, and for us trying to guide them, how do you go about and do that? I find it's really difficult to communicate that because it's so true. Because I tend to forget all of my successes. I'm sure you feel the same way. I mean, I don't even remember what it's like to not have a business and to not have that check coming in every month. You know what I mean? I just don't remember what that's like, even though it's only been a few years. It seems like an entire lifetime ago, because my life is so totally different now, and it's just become the normal for me. So is that kind of how you feel? It's just normal for you?
Yeah, it's definitely normal. It's I'm completely spoiled for working for someone else now.
Yeah, exactly right.
If some sort of nuclear catastrophe happened and the things change, then I would definitely have to have some attitude adjustments. But
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm exactly the same.
Yeah, gotcha. So what would you say for someone who's brand new, who wants to start a business? Maybe they're in school, maybe they're just hate their job. What is it that really they need to succeed?
Well, you know what I think it is? I saw a really good study recently, and they did it on children. And they took these children, they call it the marshmallow test. They took these children, they put them in a room, and they said, hey, here's a marshmallow for you, and you can eat that marshmallow now, or if you don't eat that marshmallow, I'm going to give you 2 marshmallows when I come back. And so then they just want to see what the kids would do. And then so then the researchers had left the room and came back 15 minutes later. And it was a really hard test for most people. For 2/3 of those kids, they ate that marshmallow in under 30 seconds. Mm. So it wasn't even close. They just devoured that marshmallow. Yeah. But for that 1/3 that did hold out, typically if they did hold out for that period, they were the type of person that would actually hold out for the entire thing. And so I would say that if someone is interested in doing this, they kind of have to look at themselves and say, are they the type of person that's willing to delay gratification like that? Because it does take a lot of hard work. There's no such, like you said, there's no such thing. It's not overnight success. Mm-hmm. And so are they the type of person that can delay their gratification? And the other thing is I would say, are they the type of person that is going to be persistent enough when they get knocked down that they're willing to get back up? Because some people, an adversity can happen and it just totally wipes them out, and they're like, okay, I'm done. I failed. Yeah. But the entrepreneur can't be like that. It's like you might get knocked down 15 times. You might get knocked down 70 times. The only thing that matters is that you get back up. If you get knocked down 70 times and you get back up 71 times, you're a success. So, and that's what it takes. So that's what I would recommend. It just takes a certain perseverance.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. And it's so true is that, we have all these failures, and the more failures you have, the more successful you're going to be, because the more you're going to learn. And so I don't remember exactly who said it. One of my mentors said, if you want to double your rate of success, double your rate of failure. And that's what, my motto has been for the last several years. It's like, I don't care if I make a mistake, if this recording looks stupid, or if the show goes bad, it's like whatever, like let it be what it's going to be, but I'm going to go out and do it anyways, and I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to grow and do something better next time. And so I try to always keep those new ideas coming. So what do you do? Let's say your business fails. What do you do next?
Like, let's say this business failed? Like something.
Yeah, I mean, if something happened right now, your business is gone overnight, what would you do next?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I in a way, I've already gone through that exercise, because with the Planet source code, that's exactly what happened, because all of our advertisers died. And what I did was then I just kind of took stock of, what do I have right now? So Planet source code was a programming site. And it's still there, like I said. But at the time, it was deriving all its revenues from people paying probably ridiculous prices for advertising. I mean, they were paying 60 CPM, like Microsoft pays 60 CPM just to show their little banner ad, tiny little 468 by 68 little banner ad.
That's a lot of money.
People didn't understand. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. People didn't understand the internet at all back then. But anyway, so it was making ridiculous amounts of money for very little work, and all of a sudden it just dried up overnight. The dot-com crash comes, boom, I'm in trouble. It's like I have huge bills to pay for all the bandwidth. Back then, bandwidth was a lot more expensive, so I was paying like $5,000 or $6,000 a month. And advertisers going out of business, they can't pay, no new advertisers coming in. So I took stock of what was around me, and that's what I would do today. So I would take stock, what do I have, what resources do I have? And in that case, I was like, well, no one wants to pay for all these programmers, but they sure are a useful resource. And I just kind of thought, okay, well, they're a useful resource. What kind of problems could they solve? And I thought, oh, you know what? It's like all around me, I'm constantly getting these emails of people saying, hey, Ian, can you please help me program this? I'll pay you to do this. I'll pay you to program this. And I was always like, oh, I'm too busy. No, I'm turning them down. And I was like, wait a minute. I think that's a real need. So, and that was the genesis for VWorker. So it's like, well, if I could create this website where I could connect these two sites together, if I could make it safe, there's going to have to be some sort of escrowing and arbitration, all these things. But if I could do that somehow, I think I could make that into a success. So the same thing would happen now. I would take a look. It depends on what got destroyed, but I would take a look at, what resources do I have now, and what kind of pressing problems do I see that I could solve with those resources, and hopefully I could come up with something else.
Absolutely. Those are great questions to ask. What resources do I have, and what problems can I solve? And those are, like you said, I think those are the most important questions for an entrepreneur, because first of all, you have to solve a problem in the market. If you're not solving a problem, people aren't going to buy what you have to offer. I see people all the time, they get inspired to create something, and they never find out if it actually solves anyone's problem. And then they go to market with this widget, and they're like, no one wants it, like you had with your first business, right? No one really wants it.
Yes. It's so easy because the person themselves thinks it's so wonderful. Right. So it's like everyone else must think it's wonderful too. And that is that first contact with reality, that kind of reality check that says, maybe it's not quite as wonderful as I want. So I agree with you 100%. A great entrepreneur is one that is able to, well, like you said, fails quickly. And you fail by actually taking your ideas, doing something with it, which most people don't even, to create something, but then put it out there, let the public, touch it, do it, interact with it, and see what happens, and then adjust. And I think as long as people have the expectation that probably the first try is probably not going to be, the right thing, they'll have the right mindset that's necessary to succeed eventually.
Absolutely. So tell us about VWorker. I mean, what is this business? What does it do, and why is it successful? Yeah,
so VWorker, what it does is it connects together employers. We have 150,000, and then it connects them to remote workers. So we have 300,000 of these around the world. So if I'm an employer, maybe I want programming done, or maybe I want writing done, or basically anything that can be done over the internet. I could hire someone, bring them into my office, pay for desk space, pay for all that stuff, pay for a salary. But the other thing I can do is just hire someone over the internet, and I can staff up or down instantly. I can just say, hey, I need someone right now for this tiny little project, and after that I don't need them anymore. And I can also take advantage of the fact that it's much cheaper, than bringing someone physically into my own office. A lot of times they'll save 36 to 80% over what it would take to bring a person on site. So that's basically what we do, and then we keep it safe. So we basically guarantee to the employer, hey, you will get your money back if you didn't get what you asked for. And it has to be on time, it has to be to the contract, and it has to be at the price that was quoted. If it's not those things, the employer gets the money back. But on the same side, we also guarantee it to the workers, because it's a big problem to workers. Freelancers are often ripped off. It's like one of their biggest problems. They don't get paid. Absolutely. So we say, well, the other side of this guarantee is we guarantee to you that if you do these three things, you deliver what you said you were going to do, you deliver it on time and at the price that you said, then we guarantee you will get paid, even if the other person doesn't want to pay you. So that's how we kind of bring the whole thing together.
Awesome. So who are your competitors?
So we have a lot of competitors. We probably have one of them got bought recently. There may be a consolidation going on in the industry, but maybe now there's probably about 4 main competitors. But companies like Freelancer, Elance, Scriptlance was one that was bought, Odesk. So these are competitors kind of doing the same thing. No one site does the same thing exactly. And so it's always one of the main things that we have to do to maintain that competitive advantage, to justify why do people come to us versus them. So we actually have a list that we show them. We have about 50 things that we do differently than the other sites, even though all of them offer similar things. And every site is different, so it's really interesting.
Do you think that's important to find those differences, or is it just important to give your customers what they really want?
Well, both. Because in the end, it's important to... too much of a focus on the competition, I think, is a very unhealthy thing. But at the same time, if you find yourself in such a market that they call it a commodity market. In other words, like if you are offering something that's essentially the same as someone else, like let's say I sell detergent. So my Tide detergent is probably pretty much the same as someone else's. So it is really helpful then to be able to give the customer something that the other detergent doesn't have, and to be able to say, hey, look, our Tide has, cleaning bubbles, or whatever it has that is the extra feature. So I think you can do both at the same time, but I agree with you too that it's not good to be too focused on the competition. People can't drive the business forward if they're always kind of looking backwards, trying to figure out what the competition is doing.
Absolutely. So is this something you use for yourself? I mean, does your company hire workers through VWorker?
Yeah, we do. So we have 15 of our own employees, full-time employees, but we have, I don't know, I haven't counted them, but probably close to maybe 70 or 80 of these virtual workers that we have around the world. And so they help us with our programming, marketing, writing, if we need stuff translated, all that sort of stuff.
Gotcha. So what are your customers using? Are these virtual assistants? Is that what you call them, or is it something more?
Well, yeah, some of them are virtual assistants. So the virtual assistants will come and, like, if you're in a type of business where you need to plan out maybe your day and you need to make a certain number of sales calls, the virtual assistant will go in there and call the people, set up the time, make sure they show up, and then you just take the calls, or they can take notes, they can be like a secretary. But that's only one thing. It's pretty much anything that can be done remotely. So probably the biggest thing that we have are programmers. So people that will create websites. A lot of times, a company is driving a lot of its business through its website. It needs a lot of website development. Right. SEO, so web marketing. It's like bringing people in from the search engines to these businesses so that they can make more money. So that type of SEO and marketing is a big thing. Like I said, writing has become a huge thing just because people are finding that the old style of marketing to people is no longer as good or maybe working. The old style was kind of like, hey, I'm going to interrupt whatever you're doing and tell you about my wonderful product. You should buy it. And people are kind of like, I didn't ask to hear about your product. I don't really care about it. And they're so flooded by all these messages. So kind of the newer way of marketing, the inbound marketing method, is to, rather than just kind of imposing something that someone doesn't want, give them something of value that is related to your business, but give it to them completely free, no strings attached. And then once they are actually engaged with you, then you say, oh, well, by the way, this is what my service is. So writing is like a huge thing for that, because there's all sorts of writing that needs to go on about different topics. Like in our case, for example, we have this free hiring guide that explains because unfortunately, in the real world, something like 60% of projects fail. They're either, late, over budget, they have some sort of problem and they fail. So we have a guide on how to manage remote workers so that, we get up to 89%. And so we talk about all the different things that they can do to manage these workers. And we just give it out for free. It's like if they're going to use it just to manage their own workers and they're not even going to use us, that's fine. But by giving it to them, we open up the door for them. They're very receptive when we're then saying, oh, here's what we do. So it really helps.
Gotcha. So is that your main marketing strategy then? And that's what I teach people all the time, give something away free on the internet, give a free report, give a free action guide, whatever, and then get them on your mailing list and follow up with them and build that relationship.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That is exactly it. By giving away that free thing, it's just like, and it's not just some bauble, it's actually something of valuable that solves one of their problems. Yeah. It's like, yeah, that is our main marketing method.
Wow, that's awesome. That's cool. So what have you learned from growing this VWorker business? What do you think the future holds for the industry?
Oh, well, bandwidth is just getting cheaper and cheaper. And so as bandwidth gets cheaper and cheaper, I actually think it's going to grow even more. Right now, to be honest, we don't have penetration in certain countries because either they have bandwidth problems or even like China, which you would think would just be like growing like crazy. It's not so much. I think that's going to, in the next 5 or 10 years, that's just going to like totally change. And what I think the industry is going to go to more, and what we're trying to go to more, is kind of delivering a more whole product. So in other words, the idea of the whole product is that maybe you give people kind of pieces of what they need, but if you can deliver everything that they need in one package, basically you provide the ultimate value and you can get very valuable customers. And I think what the industry is not doing well right now is that whole product, because basically it says, okay, you come to our website and you hire this remote worker. The person has to actually manage them. They've got to understand. They got to check in on, are you doing your work? That sort of thing. And that is it may sound like an easy thing, and for people that do it every day, it's an easy thing. But for a lot of these people, they don't know anything about it, so they're in way over their heads. So the next step, and this is what we are working on. We've been working on it for the last year with these features, the text shipper feature, and some other things. But it's the idea of just deliver the whole thing to them. They don't have to worry about anything. They don't have to understand how to manage someone. Just say what you want and agree to check in periodically so we can make sure that we're giving you what you want. And then we actually kind of step in and we will manage the people. We'll help them hire. We'll help them figure out who they should get. We'll rate the different people. We will oversee it. We will check it for quality, or one of our what we call Sherpas, which are people kind of like overseeing this whole process. So I think that's where the industry is going, and it will provide a lot more value.
Gotcha. It sounds to me like a totally new product. I mean, you're basically taking your expertise with hiring workers and saying, hey, we've got this huge database of workers. Let me hire them for you, basically, and let me manage them for you, right?
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of saying you don't need all the other stuff we've done so far. Because we're going to do it for you. Yes, exactly. It is a whole new product.
Gotcha. And so let's talk about the businesses that use VWorker and that use, these outsourced workers. What is the average client like? Are they like, someone who works from home? Is it like a small business? Is there Fortune 500 companies? Who are they?
There are obviously all types. The main one that we have right now is a small company, either with a small company that doesn't have the resources, so typically under 25 people, so doesn't have the resources to be able to bring the people on site, or is looking to save money, or it's an entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur is like, hey, I have this fantastic idea, but I just don't have a huge budget. I don't have $10,000 to spend on a website. I have like $3,000. So what can I get done for that? And that is also, between those two, those are our two primary markets.
Gotcha. And so how do you think this is changing? I mean, this is obviously a revolution that even a lot of people still don't understand. Like if you've read 4-Hour Workweek or books like that, like you understand like how important it is that there are virtual assistants in the Philippines and all over the world that are willing to do work for like $5 an hour or less. That's like unbelievably skilled workers, and it totally changes the economics of starting up a business today. What do you think? How is that changing the landscape today?
Oh, it is. It's absolutely revolutionary. You can start up a business today so much easier and so much cheaper than you could even just 5 years ago. And definitely, VWorker is 11 years old this year, so it was a completely different world and so much more expensive. So A website is usually primary. It's like bandwidth has gotten cheaper. You don't have to buy computers anymore. You can rent space on the cloud. It's so much cheaper. You don't have to understand anything about how it works. You don't have to manage the computers. Then when it comes to what you're talking about there, it's so much simpler to be able to just go, you know what? In the past, if I wanted whatever it is I want done, maybe it's a virtual assistant, maybe it's a website developed, I would go to whoever I knew locally, and maybe I didn't even know very many people, or I'd ask some people, and it was a very inefficient market. They would charge huge amounts of money, and they could do it because it was a captive audience. Well, now that local person has to compete against everyone in the globe, and it does put them in a difficult situation because they do have to compete. But on the other hand, from the point of view of the entrepreneur, now they're literally getting at least 50% more, and oftentimes it's something like they're saving 80%. So that's I can now make my money go 6 times farther than it could before. So it's huge.
Absolutely, and I find too that it's like you said, it's simpler, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily easier. Like it's easier to start a business in that it costs less money now. You can do it faster. You have more resources than ever before. But it doesn't make being an entrepreneur any easier because you still have the same, you know what I mean? You still have the same failures. Yes. You still have the same experiences. You still go through the same emotional roller coaster. But, you don't need the same amount of money that you used to. You don't need the same amount of time. You don't have to learn and like you said, search for months for a worker. You can just go online and find them in an hour or less.
Instantly. And the other thing I would add is like resources like yours and incubators and things like that, which have brought together knowledge about how do you start a business. None of that was there when I started. I wish it had been, because it's like that is just invaluable to be able to take advantage of all the mistakes that other people have made and learn from that. It's a huge heads up or a huge head start. And you're right, it doesn't take away the core essence, which is that no matter what you do have to work really hard for it and be adaptable, and there will be setbacks. But it is really nice. I love to see how it's just getting better, and it just seems like it's all building and improving.
Absolutely. Well, Ian, thanks so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it. I know it's going to help thousands of entrepreneurs all over the world, just inspire them and help them take action and take their businesses to the next level. So where can people find out more about you and VWorker?
So the site is VWorker, VWorker.com. And I have a bio on there, and actually I have a personal website, which is my name, Ian Ippolito, IPPOLITO.com. So either one of those. So hope to see them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ian. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.